So, one Mr. Justin Duclos, owner and operator of Golden Ninja Video, host of the Important Cinema Club podcast, plus like a dozen other podcasts that I have never listened to, has released the Super Scary Movie Challenge for 2022. The idea of this is basically you have all of September and October to watch 31 horror movies that fit specific categories. Or there's 31 categories of horror movies to watch, but the goal is to see how many you can knock out between the beginning of September and the end of October. Before Halloween, right? Halloween. It's a build up to Halloween. Is this the most insanely nerdy thing I could do? Yes. Yes, it is. But I always love an excuse to watch a shitload of horror movies. So let's watch a shitload of horror movies. Now, I'm not deliberately doing these in order, but I did start with the first one on the list, challenge number 1. A horror movie seemingly for kids that is way too scary for kids. I'll admit I'm stretching the word seemingly there a little because my pick was the 1988 Czechoslovakian film Alice, which is an adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. Jesus fuck, where are all these flies coming from? There's a lot of flies out today. I say this is seemingly for kids. I have found no evidence that this is not a film for children. Really, there's nothing in it that is like so explicit, like at least on paper, that you couldn't show it to kids, except it is way too creepy for kids. They got like skeletons and bones and like eyeballs and shit rolling around. It's creepy. It's creepy as fuck. Like, I don't say that about a lot of movies, honestly. There are not many movies I think like really creep me out in the way Alice creeps me out. But at the same time, I can't say it's not for kids. It is an Alice in Wonderland adaptation. Although, you know, it's like, it's got that weird art house vibe to it, so it's probably a film made for the director of the film. You know, it was a movie. It's a movie he wants to watch. It's a movie he wants to see. So that's what we got. In fact, I believe the director even came out and said he was bothered by other adaptations that don't lean into the dreamlike quality of Alice in Wonderland. I fucking loved this movie, man. This movie was so good. I mean, like I said, it's creepy, it's weird, it's a strange one, but I kind of like that. It works about the movie. It works for the movie. I think it captures a very strange aesthetic very well. It does its job very well. It gets that dreamlike quality down very well. I'm not gonna like come out and recommend this to everyone, but I would honestly strongly recommend this to at least people with my sort of sensibilities. For the people who like the shit that's like the like really weird shit that I talk about all the time. This is a film that may be coming up in conversation again. I really liked this one. Yeah, Alice, 1988. Strong start to this challenge. I get the feeling that I will not have as nice words to say about a lot of these movies, but to start us off, Alice, great movie. Alright, today we hit number 8 on the list, a mummy movie post-1989 that doesn't feature Brendan Fraser or Tom Cruise, which is a little unfortunate because the Tom Cruise The Mummy is going to be the next Hall of Victories episode, so I'm watching that movie anyways, but fuck it, we'll throw another one in here. I watched The Mummy Theme Park from the year 2000. This was recommended to me, I believe, by John Cleveland. I keep track of all the movies that are recommended for the show, and John Cleveland does most of those recommendations. And I gotta say, Mummy Theme Park, spot on. This is something I would review. So the movie starts with this, like, chic in this big palace, and this sorceress who's like angry at him and putting a curse on him, and you're like, okay, so this is like the ancient Egypt opening, and then we're gonna cut to the modern day, and the story's gonna go from there. And then it cuts to 1 week later, and it's the modern day, and the Sheik and the sorcerer are still there, but the story takes place in the year 2000, and you can tell it takes place in the year 2000. They don't let you forget that. There's a lot of, like, computer hacker shit in this movie. Plus, the main character is a pornographer, getting in early on the porn websites. So, it's just set in the modern day, but it kind of looks like it's ancient Egypt. I don't get it. This movie mostly seems like it has the production value of, like, a church play. An expensive church play, but, like, it's all material that is, like, commercially available. There was clearly no, like, prop department or costume department. Set department just had to work with, like, whatever they could find, you know? Except every now and then, there'll be, like, a set that's really, really nice, and you're like, did someone just let them film on, like, a different, like someone had already used this set for something, and they're like, can we put this in our Mummy movie? And they're like, yeah, sure, whatever. But then, like, the gore in this movie is really good. It's, like, really well done gore effects. I can't say all the special effects are good. There's some really bad special effects near the end, but, like, the gore effects are surprisingly good, and it's like, why is this the thing you put money into? I believe this film is Italian. The dub is not good. Uh, this is not the era of Italian horror I am typically used to, and also this seems like, you know, like, this wasn't mainstream Italian horror. Even in Italy, this is like a cheap-ass movie. So it's dubbed, and it's obviously dubbed, and the dubbed voices are not very good. And then you've got this lady who, at the beginning of the movie, it's about, like, this man and this woman go to this brand new Mummy theme park, and she just, like, will not stop making fun of these people for their religion. It's like every cliche of, like, edgy atheists, except it doesn't even seem like she's an atheist. She's just making fun of them for, like, believing in ancient Egyptian gods. She's just like, haha, you people still believe in these ridiculous old myths. Except it's like, there's no, like the tone of her voice is so obnoxious and yet so, like, underplayed. She's not, it's not, the actress is not good. So it's just like, wow, you still believe in all of this ancient myths? Ha ha ha. So then we get into the main plot, and it's Westworld. The movie, not the TV show. It's Westworld, except they have put the robots into, like, the actual mummies, like actual mummified remains. They've put the robots inside the actual mummified remains, and I'm like, wow, that is like wildly disrespectful, like, to an absurd degree. Now the villain's motivation is in this movie is that she believes these people are disrespecting the tomb, and that's why she's placed this curse on it. So, like, they address the fact, they are not in the right for putting robotics into mummified remains, but on the other hand, that seems like something so ridiculous it would never get past, like, the idea phase. Like, someone would say it, and everyone else would be like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? So it's Westworld, combined with, like, the rumors about the real skeletons on Pirates of the Caribbean. Because, of course, the robots go haywire and start attacking people. Although in this movie, that seems to be caused by a curse, rather than just, like, shit going haywire like it does in Westworld. But yeah, it's Westworld with zero budget, and it's about mummies. I loved it. Now, this was a fun movie. This, like I said, this definitely has review potential. This This is right up my alley. I had a lot of fun watching this. Super underrated, cheesy horror movie. Give it a look. I kind of recommend it for a certain audience, for people who are down for like a really bad movie. All right, number 24, a movie about an invisible killer. For this one, I chose The Hollow Man, which is maybe an obvious pick, but like, I watched the Mummy theme park yesterday, and I had to like stitch together the next movie I'm gonna watch by myself. So, allow me one Hollow Man, please. This is a film from the glorious Paul Verhoeven, director of RoboCop, of course. And, like, RoboCop is one of my favorite movies of all, like, top 5 movies right there. I love Total Recall. I think Verhoeven maybe gets a little more credit than he deserves. In fairness, he has been the subject of, controversy and scorn. So I feel like at some point people had to like subvert the idea that Verhoeven was a bad director, because he's not a bad director. He made RoboCop. He made Total Recall. He's a great director. I think maybe we've gone too far the other way, because not all of his films are good. A lot of his films are not good, actually. And even like Hollow Man came out in 2000, and it just feels like Paul Verhoeven shouldn't be making movies in the 2000s. The 2000s is not really a time period that works for Verhoeven movies. What's more, this film, like, okay, Verhoeven has done shock content before, but this film feels like it's just being shocking for shocking's sake. It's really, I don't know. It never feels justified. It feels like they're going for like the cheapest, most tasteless shit. Like he escapes the lab and immediately he's raping someone. It's the first thing he does is rape someone, and it's like, you're supposed to, this drug is supposed to be deteriorating Kevin Bacon's mind. I haven't really explained the plot, but it's the old Invisible Man story. The Invisible Man serum makes him go crazy, so you're supposed to be seeing Kevin Bacon's sort of deteriorating mental state, but I feel like it just drops off too fast. It's like, he's kinda stable, but he's also like, he's got his mad science-y moments, but he's like kinda stable, and then he's escaped the lab and he's raping someone, and it's like, okay, I needed a little more of him going insane, a little less of a steep decline. And then they kill a fucking dog. That's just, the dog dies. The dog dies. So I didn't love this one. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's certainly not the worst thing Verhoeven's made. It held my attention at the very least, but it's not. I wouldn't really recommend it to anyone. This is very much a Verhoeven movie you can skip. The effects are hit or miss, which is probably what you'd expect from a Verhoeven film in the year 2000. Because all of the practical effects work. The practical effects work is great in this movie. The CG, there are moments where the CG works. There are moments where it's like, okay, you know what, that shot still kind of holds up. But there's, most of it does not. Most of it looks like it was done in 2000, so it does not look great. But the practical effects work, and there's one or two shots where the CG works. I'll give it credit for its time. I'm not going to say this film has bad effects. This is like the type of bad movie that I haven't really watched in a while. This is like the type of thing like my friends and I would have made fun of in like high school. This feels like something that could have been like on the Nostalgia Critic back in the day. Which, like, I don't know, he talked about plenty of movies that were like decent but not horrible. I think I sort of misread everything he did. It's like, oh, well, if he's reviewing it, it must be a bad movie. But I was a dumb kid then. I could see him. He could have done a Hollow Man review. It would have made complete sense. So that's the vein that this movie is in. It's a movie from 2000 that's just kind of not like horrible, but really underwhelming. I was not into it. Moving on. Number 23, a film based on an indie comic. I watched the Italian film Satanic, which is based on a comic that I'm given to understand the movie is not really that much like. This is like a really standard, Jekyll and Hyde thing. Like, not really even. The comic is Jekyll and Hyde, from what I read about it on Wikipedia. But the movie, this woman invents this serum that will like make her young again, but it comes with the side effect of like making her go insane. So it's Hollow Man again. We're doing the I tried to invent this serum, but it made me the evil killer. So, I mean, I guess that's Jekyll and Hyde, but in Jekyll and Hyde, the serum doesn't do anything else to him. He just becomes evil. Where in like most movies like that, it ends up with, they're trying to do one thing, and it does that, but it also makes them crazy and evil. That's the vein Satanic finds itself in. This lady has made a serum that will make her young and beautiful, but it also makes her an evil killer. And it's a movie that has its moments, but there's so much of her just like wandering around being like, oh, look at me, look how pretty I am, gotta take full advantage of being pretty while I'm pretty, and none of it is interesting, none of it is fun. It's just sort of her walking around doing stuff, and it's like, I needed a lot less of her just wandering around aimlessly and a lot more of her being like evil. Also, the title feels more than a little deceptive. There's mention of selling their soul to Satan at the beginning, but like only as like an exaggerated example. Like the scientist lady's just like, well, it's not like I'm selling my soul to Satan, and then that's the only mention it gets in the whole film. So it's not really a satanic movie, which is what I was hoping for going into this. Instead, it's just a woman with a pill that turns her beautiful and evil. And honestly, she kind of seems a little evil before she even takes the pill. Like, she's so obsessed with becoming beautiful that she's, like, ignoring all these procedures that they're supposed to be doing before testing out the experiment. So, I don't even know how evil the pill makes her. Maybe the pill just makes her beautiful and she was already evil. I kind of had to assemble this movie myself, because the film is on YouTube. The whole thing's on YouTube. But there was no English version of it. There was no English subtitled version. But I did find an English subtitle track. Like, I just Googled and I found a whole file of the English subtitles. So I had to go in and add the subtitles to this film myself. Now, I've uploaded the English subtitled version, so if you want to watch the whole movie, it's out there now with English subtitles. Although the version I found on YouTube for free was pretty obviously missing some nudity. When I was like putting the subtitles in, the subtitles kept getting off sync, and it was almost always after either a striptease scene or a sex scene. So I'm like, okay, there was nudity that was cut out. And that's why the subtitles don't quite sync up. So I made the subtitles sync up. I double-checked. The subtitles all work. Although, I don't know that I would really recommend this movie. Like I said, there are scenes, there are moments that are really fun in this movie, but most of it is not interesting at all. I guess that's that. Number 19, a musical horror movie not counting the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So I watched the Rocky Horror Picture Show sequel, Shock Treatment, which feels like cheating. Not because it's a sequel to Rocky Horror, because honestly it has fuck all to do with Rocky Horror. More because it's not
really a horror movie. I guess there are horror-ish elements to it, but I don't know. It's not quite as horror centric as I thought it was going to be. I don't really want to compare this to Rocky Horror too much because really the connection they have, apart from some like cast and crew on both, the only thing really connecting them is that the main characters' names are Brad and Janet Majors, and even then it's different actors, so it's not even the same Brad and Janet from the first movie. Arguably all of the villains are played by the same actors, so you could argue that like it's the Transylvanians again, and they've taken up new human disguises, but the movie doesn't confirm that. That would just be a theory on how they're connected. Honestly, if you want to enjoy this movie, you kind of have to separate it from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Honestly, the only comparison I could make between the two in any sort of concise manner, because I could go on probably forever about the differences between these movies and why they work just a little better in Rocky Horror. But in short, I think Rocky Horror Picture Show is a perfectly executed film. Shock Treatment is a good film. That's it. It's not great. It's good. It's fun. It's even like weird and unique enough that I'm sure there are people who like it better than Rocky Horror. I'm sure there is a not insubstantial subset of people who will try to argue that this is better than Rocky Horror. I would disagree, but I certainly see why someone would like it more than Rocky Horror. It's a little more straightforward with what it's trying to say. Because this is like such a blunt criticism of American suburbia. Like, it's it just hits you over the head with it, honestly. And honestly, there's a lot of stuff in it that I think has gotten more relevant since the film came out in 1981. Like, for one thing, it's sort of like a reality TV show Brad and Janet end up on, which was not as big a thing back then. Now it's like a huge thing. And there's so many other little things that it's like, honestly, that makes more sense now. This movie was a little ahead of its time in a lot of regards, I think. The music is really good, not as consistently good as Rocky Horror, but there are some really good tracks on this one. Bitchin' in the Kitchen and the title track, Shock Treatment, both stand out to me as like really excellent songs. But I don't know shit about music, so maybe take that with a grain of salt. Overall, Shock Treatment is a really entertaining film, and I think its reputation has been marred by the expectation that it's a Rocky Horror sequel, which it is not. I think even in advertising they said like, "Oh, it's not a sequel, it's not a prequel, it's an equal." I don't think this is equal to Rocky Horror, but I do think it deserves recognition separate from Rocky Horror. I think, you have to bring up Rocky Horror. It's from the same writer. He gave the main characters the same name. Even the musical stylings are very similar. But this is something completely different. This is in no way related to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. This is like a distant cousin of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So yeah, if you want to enjoy this film, get Rocky Horror out of your head. Enjoy this movie for what it is. Number 2, a horror movie about non-avian dinosaurs. I watched Roger Corman's infamous Jurassic Park cash-in Carnosaur. A movie I've been meaning to see for a while now, actually. Although, honestly, I don't know how fair it is to call this a Jurassic Park cash-in. It was the 90s. Everyone was doing dinosaurs. Right? You had Jurassic Park, but then you also had, like, the show Dinosaurs, and Barney the Dinosaur, and Theodore Rex, and all these other dinosaur things that were coming out in the 90s.
There was even that Disney film, Dinosaur, that got delayed to 2000, but it was supposed to come out in the 90s. So everyone was doing dinosaurs in the 90s. Roger Corman gets a pass on this one. Also, as the title suggests, Carnosaur has a lot more carnage than Jurassic Park. There's a lot more gore and violence in this one. And honestly, if you're gonna watch this movie, watch it for the violence. The kills are really good. Nothing else is. Okay, I take that back. The last shot, the final shot of the film, where they burn through an image of Alfred E. Newman and it goes into the credits. That was a good ending. That was a good final shot. Everything else sucks. They keep cutting back to, like, the scientists responsible for this dinosaur that has gotten loose, and not once, not one of those scenes made a goddamn lick of sense. I never knew what was going on in that subplot. Like, in one scene, the guy is, like, threatening the lady and being real suspicious and secretive, and so you're like, okay, he's the bad guy. He's the one that has unleashed Carnosaur on the world. And then in the next scene with them, the woman is talking about giving the Earth back to the dinosaurs. And it's like, wait, she's the bad one? But he was the bad one last scene. What? And then the main plot is this, like, security guard and this, like, environmentalist girl. This is an environmentalist movie, weirdly enough. And it's so fucking blunt with it. Like, just in case you didn't get the message of the film, there's a big sign that says, "Corporations are destroying our planet." And one of the characters points at it and goes, "Corporations are destroying our planet." And it's like, yeah, thanks, I get it. Thanks. Carnosaur is bad. The kills are cool, but the movie's pretty bad. Honestly, I almost want to, like, get, like, a high quality version of this movie and then take all of, like, the really graphic dinosaur kill scenes and splice them into Jurassic Park. Because if there's one thing that would improve Jurassic Park, at least in my opinion, it would be some serious dinosaur gore. You know, we didn't... Jurassic Park, it was PG-13. It's a PG-13 series. It's supposed to appeal to, like, kids and teenagers, so there's not that much violence in them. So they could really use some, like, blood and guts in them. That is the one thing I think would improve Jurassic Park. So, you know, just, like, take the violence from this movie and stick it in Jurassic Park. A movie with good acting and characters and story. A movie that makes sense. Carnosaur doesn't make a lick of sense. It's really boring, except for the kills. I don't really recommend it. Number 18, a Death March movie. A movie where characters get killed off one by one, but they keep moving along to their destination. Honestly, I had no good ideas for this one, but as it happened, I was watching Wrong Turn for a video I'm gonna make on the Wrong Turn series, and I'm like, oh hey, this fits that description, so the movie I watched was Wrong Turn. I'm not gonna talk about Wrong Turn very long, because again, I'm making a video on the whole series, but just offhand, it was fine. Like, it was probably one of the better 2000s horror movies I've seen, but the 2000s was an awful decade for horror, so that's a pretty low bar. I don't know, it was fine. Hey, if you'd like to hear me talk longer about Wrong Turn, subscribe to Matt Presents. Number 29, a horror film shot by Tokusho Kikumura. Hope that's even close to right. I watched Ju-On, The Grudge, a movie I somehow haven't seen before. I know I just said the 2000s was a horrible decade for horror movies, but I was referring exclusively to American horror. The 2000s was a bad decade for American horror. Foreign horror was actually doing pretty well during the 2000s. It was a good time for Japan and Korea specifically, but I can even think of a few other good foreign horror films from the era. It was mostly American horror movies that sucked. The Grudge is
really good. I liked The Grudge. So, The Grudge doesn't beat around the bush at all. Like, there's a lot of ghost movies where it takes them a while to be like, okay, yeah, it's ghosts. Like, there'll be, like, little mysterious things happen, and it's like, ooh, what is it? Ooh, what's causing this? And then it's ghosts. You gotta have the big reveal that it's ghosts, right? Not The Grudge. The Grudge is just, like, from pretty early on in the movie, The Grudge is just like, nah, it's ghosts. There's a ghost here. It's just like taking people. There aren't honestly like that many kills in the movie. I mean, it opens on a pretty grisly murder, but like a lot of the scenes it's just someone like getting pulled away, I guess, into the ghost world. You don't really know what happens to them. So, yes, they don't beat around the bush with the ghost stuff, but at the same time, this movie kind of drags in the middle. I think it picks it up by the end. The end is pretty good, and they've got the ghosts showing up consistently enough, and there's enough good in the visual department. It's a really creepy looking film. Um, that I mean I'll forgive it being a little slow in the middle. Overall, pretty solid movie. It's not like the best J horror film I've ever seen or anything, but it's pretty enjoyable. I understand why it's become sort of an essential of the genre. Um, I'd recommend it. Ju-on the Grudge, good movie. All right, knocking two out right here. Number 7, an action movie that's secretly a horror movie, and number 26, a movie that's been released by Gold Ninja Video. I would say both of those apply to both of these films, Kung Fu Zombie and The Holy Virgin versus the Evil Dead. Both films I picked up from Gold Ninja Video's Kickstarter. They were doing a Kickstarter, and one of the rewards was getting some out-of-print Blu-rays from them. I also got the very first one, The Dragon Lives Again, which is a movie I love to death, and I am so happy to have this release of it. And that actually ties into this first movie, Kung Fu Zombie, because one of the voices in this, one of the guys who dubbed this, is the guy who dubbed pretty much everyone in Dragon Lives Again. He's like all of the voices in the English dub of Dragon Lives Again, and then he shows up in this to play like 3 or 4 characters. And it's as disorienting as The Dragon Lives Again, but without like the added humor of just ripping off a bunch of other properties. So what you end up with is like a pretty middle of the road action movie. Kung Fu movie. Like, the Kung Fu's pretty good. The fight scenes are pretty good. Not, like, exceptionally good or anything. They're fine, though. And the zombie stuff isn't, like, that important to the story. I mean, it's like, okay, the good guy needs something to beat up. There's zombies. And it's not even zombies. It's some Chinese mythological creature. So I wouldn't even say this is the best Kung Fu zombie movie, because there's a surprising amount of Kung Fu zombie movies. This one even comes with Kung Fu Beyond the Grave as a bonus feature. I would say my favorite is We're Going to Eat You. I've also seen Ninja vs. Zombie and Ninja Zombie. 2 different movies. I probably did like Kung Fu Zombie more than those 2. If you're looking for like a Kung Fu movie that also has zombies in it, I would say go with We're Going to Eat You over Kung Fu Zombie. But Kung Fu Zombie is fun. Now, on the other hand, Holy Virgin versus the Evil Dead, starring the immaculate Donnie Yen, I think is great. This is a really fun, really enjoyable action horror film. I guess this is kind of Kung Fu Zombie 2? Like a Kung Fu Zombie movie as well, I mean. It's not a sequel to Kung Fu Zombie.
Although this is more demonic possession, I guess, which you might have gotten from the fact that they have put Evil Dead in the title. I'm sure that was a decision by the American distributors and not the Chinese trying to call this Evil Dead. But, you know what? I'll let them have it. It's a good movie. They can carry the Evil Dead name. I was gonna say worse things have carried it, but you know what? I can't think of... Like, I haven't seen the Evil Dead remake, and I've actually heard the Evil Dead remake is pretty decent, and that's, like, the only thing that I think even could be bad in the Evil Dead series. Because I've seen the first 3 movies and the TV show, so maybe one of the games sucks. Maybe this is better than, like, some of the games. Whatever, it can carry the Evil Dead. I mean, certainly worse things have carried the Evil Dead name unofficially. We could talk about the La Casa series, and I have, at length. But, yeah, I mean, as far as, like, Evil Dead ripoffs that just use the name Evil Dead, this is probably the best one. I enjoyed it. There's lots of fun little gore gags, a lot of great action sequences. I love Donnie Yen. This even comes with, the Donnie Yen movie, Asian Cop High Voltage. Now, I believe they put the original Chinese version on here, but I have seen the American dub of this movie, and it's hilarious because they gave Donnie Yen, like, the most white voice you have ever heard. So Donnie Yen will walk up and just be like, "Yes, I see we have a crime scene here. It is me, the very Asian actor, Donnie Yen." I think that's I think that's Asian Cop. I might be thinking of something else. Maybe it was Circus Kids. Maybe it was Circus Kids where the dub was super white. I forget. But one of those, like, bargain bin Donnie Yen movies, they just dub him with the whitest fucking voice, and it's hilarious. Anyways, Holy Virgin versus the Evil Dead. Good movie. Number 25, a movie that prominently features a gorilla suit. I watched Bela Lugosi Meets Brooklyn Gorilla, which is honestly a movie I feel like I should have seen before now. Like, it just seems like the type of thing I would have watched already. So this is a movie starring 2 gentlemen named Duke and Sammy, who are Martin and Lewis impersonators. Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis. Now, I have never actually seen a Martin and Lewis movie. I've seen Jerry Lewis movies. I've seen Dean Martin movies. I have never seen them together. And this movie honestly kind of makes me want to watch a Martin and Lewis movie because it cannot possibly be as bad as this. They have to be better than this. Just knowing Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, they have to be better than this. They have to be. Honestly, calling this a horror movie and saying it prominently features a gorilla suit is maybe a bit of a stretch. Bela Lugosi and his Brooklyn Gorilla are barely in the movie, which is disappointing because they are far and away the most interesting part. I do not care about Duke and Sammy's fucking running around doing whatever bullshit. It's about Bela Lugosi as this, like, mad scientist who turns Duke into a gorilla, but it's an hour 17 movie. It's a short movie, but that doesn't happen till, like, the 50-minute mark. It's like that's the main conflict of your movie, and you're introducing it like 30 minutes before the end of the film. It just, like, it honestly, that's the part that feels out of place, even though it's what the whole movie is centered around. This movie's not good. It is one of those movies that's, like, way more interesting to talk about than actually watch, because there's a lot to talk about with this movie, because it's a fucking Martin and Lewis knockoff that has Bela Lugosi in it, sort of playing... okay, his character has a name, but they also seem very aware that he is Bela Lugosi. It's sort of an Arsenic and Old Lace thing where they, like, reference that the actor was Dracula. It's like, hey, you look like that guy from the movies. Except in the movie of Arsenic and Old Lace, it actually wasn't Boris Karloff. He was in the play, but not the movie. The pacing in this movie's bad. None of the jokes are funny. It's super boring until the gorilla stuff happens. And even the gorilla stuff is not, like, particularly entertaining. It's just like, oh, hey, look, something is happening. Something has finally started occurring. Yeah, no, it's not a good one, but like I said, it's one that is far more interesting to talk about than watch, so there's that to consider. It at least has that going for it. It is an interesting topic of conversation, not a particularly good movie. Number 9, a film by Jeff Leroy. I watched Creepies, which was another recommendation for the show, and it makes perfect sense why. This is exactly the type of incomprehensible nonsense I love to talk about on my show. There's a part of me that wants to call it like a send-up of old B-movies, but it's not. It's just a B-movie. It is influenced by old B-movies. It uses a lot of the same tricks they do, but it's just a B-movie. It's not even inspired by those old ones. If Ed Wood were making movies in 2003, this is what it would look like. But that's kind of a compliment. I enjoy Ed Wood movies, and I enjoyed this movie. It's terrible. It's a horrible movie, but it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to keep my thoughts brief on this one, because this one definitely has a lot of review potential. Really enjoyed Creepies. We'll probably be checking out more Jeff Leroy films. I am being accosted by ducks here. I also knocked out number 20, a film with testicular torture. I watched Orgies of Edo, a Japanese film from 1968. And that sure is a porno right there. I mean, granted, this came out before most American pornos, like the 70s porn that America was making in the 70s. And it's better than that. It's a lot better than the American porn that came after it. It's really well shot. The actors are, like, filmed in flattering ways, in spite of the fact that a lot of the film is rape. It's a lot of rape in this movie. But I mean, it's it's a better shot porno than the porn America was making in the 70s, but it is really still just a porno. Like, there's a little murder in it, there's a little, like, rape revenge to it, but mostly it's just porn. And really extreme porn. Like, really extreme porn. That's the movie. I mean, it does a good job being what it is. I'll give it credit for that. It does a good job being what it is, but I can't say what it is particularly appeals to me. Alright, number 7, a new wave Hong Kong horror movie. For this, I watched The Boxer's Omen, an infamous film that I somehow have just never gotten around to watching. And I enjoyed it pretty well. There's a lot of, like, fun, crazy stuff going on in this movie. It was a really entertaining film. I will say some of the story stuff starts to go on a little too long. Not that I don't mind the story. The story is good. I will work with the story here. But a lot of it goes on too long, and you're like, go back to doing the cool wizard stuff. Like, the plot's fine, but I'm here for the cool wizard stuff, you know? Like, the thing this reminded me of was Centipede Horror, which I'll grant you, that's another, like, new wave Hong Kong horror film. I'll grant you it's a deep cut. It's not one of the more popular ones. But I just think the pacing is better in Centipede Horror. It does a lot of the same, like, weird, crazy magic stuff. But the pacing's better. Like, it's far quicker, gets to the point way better. So that's, I guess, my hot take here. Centipede Horror is, like, the better version of The Boxer's Omen. I still like The Boxer's Omen. I'd still recommend it. I think it's the better version of this film. Weirdly,
Like in the West, we get a lot of Catholic horror, you know? There's a lot of horror films that are very centered around the Catholic faith. This is like a Buddhist horror film, which I've not really seen before. You get like, I mean, most Chinese movies, particularly horror movies, you'll get like light little sprinklings of Buddhism. In this one, like the main character straight up has to become like a Buddhist monk to defeat the villain of the movie. So, like, this is a Buddhist horror film, okay? This is a Buddhist horror film in the same vein that, like, The Exorcist is a Catholic horror film, or Satan's Slaves is an Islamic horror film. I love Satan's Slaves. That's a good one. Boxer's Omen. It's wild. It's fun. It's fascinating. If somehow you're a fan of Centipede Horror, if you're a fan of Centipede Horror, it's because you watch my channel and you saw it after I recommended it. If you're a fan of Centipede Horror, Boxer's Omen, also fun. And if you're a fan of Boxer's Omen, I would recommend Centipede Horror. Watch that one. I'll go ahead and knock out Devil here as well. Number 6 on the list was a horror movie that takes place in one room. I watched the movie Devil, written and produced by M. Night Shyamalan, but not directed by him. Directed by someone else, which feels weird because Shyamalan is a much better director than he is a writer. Like, you look back at, like, his 2 good films, and it's like, the directing's really good in this. And even some of, like, his lesser films, you're like, yeah, this was still, like, well shot, well, you know, like, it's a good-looking film. It was well-directed. He's not good with performances. He does pull bad performances from his actors. But, you know, he can make a good-looking film. He has a very good eye for film. Devil is, like, the most low-stakes mystery you'll ever see. Like, pretty early on, it's clear that the villain of this movie is, in fact, the devil. So, you know, you got these 5 people in this elevator, and one of them's the devil, and he's killing all of the other people in the elevator. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which one of them it is. Like, no matter, there's no, like, setup, there are no hints, there's no, like, I don't know, there's no, whoever it is doesn't really change the movie. It's not some grand reveal that's like, oh my god, this recontextualizes everything we've seen. They really established this really well with all these hints. No, it's just a random person at the end. Like, which character it is did not matter at all. There was no hint that it was ever going to be the person it ends up being, except that we knew it was one of these 5 people. Like, I might as well hold up a picture of 5 people and be like, well, one of these 5 people's the devil. Who is it? Which one's the devil? And then I just start Xing them out. Like, ooh, that one's dead. He's not the devil. This one's dead. He's not the devil. It's like, I don't know. It's so lame. It's so low stakes. It's so boring. It's also kind of stretching the the challenge on this one, because it's a horror movie that takes place in one room. Yeah, like, the main characters are stuck in an elevator, but you've also got some other characters who are, like, going around the building that they're in, so it's not really all one room, just, like, the main action is in one room, so maybe a stretch, but I hadn't actually seen this movie before, so I didn't know that going in. It's not, like, the worst thing ever. It's not, like, insufferable, but it's just, like, nothing. It's just nothing. It's a nothing movie. Okay, I acknowledge the scene here is very yellow. I have turned the color temperature up as much as I possibly can on my camera app. Just for reference, this is what my camera app looks like. My like, nice professional camera app looks like. This is what I look like, just, like, on the normal camera in my phone, not using the fancy camera app. Looks a lot nicer, doesn't it? Except the sound is way worse if I don't use the camera app, so I'm just going to keep using the camera app. So this is movie 16, so we've just passed that halfway mark. I did number 10 on the list, a horror film scored by Paul Zaza. For this, I picked the 1991 film Popcorn, which is a delightful little movie that I am astounded I don't hear more about. It did come out in 91, which is like a little late for a slasher movie, if you even want to consider this a slasher. I think it is. Good horror movies weren't really coming out in the 90s. Like good horror in the 90s, especially like mainstream horror in the 90s, was kind of exceptionally rare. You got some in there. Definitely more than like the 2000s, which I've already bitched about in this video, but you didn't get especially slashers, right? Like before this, I think the only good slasher I'd seen from the 90s was Scream. Scream was well, okay, and Wes Craven's New Nightmare. This is the best 90s slasher movie that wasn't directed by Wes Craven. It's just like these kids, these college kids are putting on like a horror movie marathon, and they come across this like film reel that was from like this crazy cult leader slash filmmaker, and his like big final film was supposed to be like end with him sacrificing his wife and his daughter live in front of the audience, but then stuff happened, and then it never, like, he never got to finish the ritual. But now it seems like he's back, and that he's killing off all these people. And of course there is a cool little twist with that too. He's killing people off with these like William Castle-esque like film gimmicks, right? They got a big mosquito flying around and someone gets stabbed with it, and they got like the electric seats that William Castle used to do, and someone of course gets shocked with that to death. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed Popcorn. It's not like a brilliant or horribly original movie. I do even have a few problems with it. The William Castle movies they're watching, the fake William Castle movies they're watching in there, they don't bear any resemblance to like the types of films from that era. They didn't do a very good job like translating that era of film. Plus, then you've got like this audience who keeps like yelling and heckling the movie, and it's like, you made the movie, man. Like, you get to make up whatever lines you want to be in this movie for the audience to riff on. It's not as funny. I would have appreciated something a little more authentic there. Even if I would have been fine if they had just like shown actual William Castle movies. That would have been hilarious. But I mean, like, these are minor problems I have with the film. Overall, it's really fun. I had a really good time with this one. It reminded me a bit of the uh, Vincent Price movie, Theater of Blood, which itself was kind of a Dr. Phibes ripoff. And this feels a little more fully realized than Theater of Blood. I probably do like this a little bit more than Theater of Blood. Not a lot more. I do like Theater of Blood, but I probably liked this more than Theater of Blood. The villain in this movie is shooting for Jim Carrey so hard, and he's kind of nailing it. Like, I'm sure I could show this to someone and convince them that, like, the villain in this movie was played by a young Jim Carrey, but like before he got like famous, because this would have been before Dumb and Dumber, before The Mask, but it feels like he's channeling Jim Carrey. um he's doing a good job of it. I don't know, just a really fun movie all around. I had a lot of fun with this one. I recommend Popcorn. And I can't forget to tell you about the scary movie rap they have over the end credits. It's horrendously lame and kinda doesn't fit with the tone of the film, but at the same time it's a funny rap song about horror movies, so I don't know. It's cute. It's fun. Number 21, a film shot on mini VD that is not a found footage film. I picked the infamous Takashi Miike joint. Takashi Miike joint? I'm never sure how to pronounce that. Although, when I was young, I called him Takashi Mike at least once. That's a better name. He should go by Takashi Mike. I watched the infamous Takashi Miike joint Visitor Q. I didn't actually say the title of the movie. Sorry. Visitor Q. Yet again, I watch a movie for this and I'm like, is this a horror movie? Is this a horror movie? I think a few of these have been pretty debatable. And this one definitely falls in that vein. Visitor Q is an odd movie. It's like this particularly fucked up family gets visited by this like random stranger, and he just kind of encourages them to be even more fucked up. Okay, this belongs in the conversation with something like Salò. It's a film with, a lot of artistic merit, a film with a lot of stuff I like, that is just absolutely no fun to watch. Like, this movie is disgusting and aggressively disgusting, and it like bogs down the movie so much. Because like this main story of like this guy encouraging this family's bad habits, I kind of like that. I'm kind of into that. As I was watching it, I'm like, I've seen movies like this that I wish were more like Visitor Q, like I wish Bad Influence with Rob Lowe and James Spader. Rob Lowe and James Spader, Bad Influence. I wish that was a lot more like Visitor Q. But it's still a pretty painful sit. It's still a pretty hard thing to get through. I don't think it's like quite as bad as Salò, but like that's not I mean, not quite as bad as Salò is still pretty fucking hard to get through. Like if you weren't into Salò, you will not be into Visitor Q either. I probably do like Visitor Q a little better, but I don't I if you really put a gun to my head and it's like you have to watch one of these movies again, I probably would pick Salò, just because, like, I think I would get more out of a rewatch of Salò. This movie, it has its moments. There's a lot about it that I like, but there's also a lot dragging it down. There's a lot that's like, come on. Yeah, I don't know. I think that just about covers it. I think really all you can do when you're talking about this movie is just like, yeah, it's like Salò, but like not that bad, but also still pretty bad. That covers my bases, I think. Visitor Q. It was interesting. I'm glad I watched it. I will probably never revisit it. Number 14, a horror movie about killer insects that aren't bigger than humans. For this, I watched Irwin Allen's classic The Swarm, which is the only movie here that the first movie so far that I've actually seen before. Although it's been a while, I didn't really remember it, so this was like, alright, let's go back, refresh my memory. What was that movie like? And my fucking god, I have never seen a movie that needed to be cut down more than this. This movie is entirely too long. It's like 2.5 hours. It needs to be 1.5 hours, okay? There's this whole, like they spend a lot of time in this town that the bees are attacking, and, like, I get, like, 1 or 2 scenes kind of show town life, make them a little sympathetic before the bees attack, but they just go on and on and on. There's this fucking love triangle between these 2 old dudes and a teacher, and it's like, I don't care! I'm here for the bees! Go back to the bees! You've got, like, Michael Caine and these scientists trying to stop the bees, and that all feels important. That's like, okay, I'm interested in this. This is an interesting story. That needed to be the movie. That needed to be the focus of the movie, because all this other bullshit is so boring and so pointless.
I can't with this movie. Why is this movie as long as it is? Who decided this needed to be 2.5 hours? Christ on a bike, it's so long. And it didn't need to be. Because, like, the effects in this movie are great. There are some really good special effects in this film, but my god, they are not enough to save it. The stuff with the bees is interesting. I kind of like the stuff with the bees, but then they spend so much time on not the bees that it's like, oh my, it's impossible to watch. It's so slow. It's so unbearably slow. It spends so much time on things that do not matter. This is like the least efficient use of screen time I have ever seen in a film. I have never seen a movie that needed this much cut from it to be a good movie. I didn't like it. There's stuff about it I like. There's plenty of enjoyable parts when it's being like a silly Irwin Allen disaster movie about some killer bees. It's a lot of fun. Man, it's boring. That's it. That's all I gotta say about The Swarm.
Number 28, a horror film that runs on dream logic. I watched Alucarda. I actually wasn't expecting Alucarda to be as, like, surreal as it was. I thought it was gonna be, like, a pretty straightforward vampire movie. But no, it's got this, like, wild, gay, psychosexual tone that reminds me of, like, an early Todd Haynes film, but it's got, like, the plot and production of a Hammer horror movie. And that's just, like, such a beautiful combination to me. I love both these things, and the two coming together, it's like, man, I really loved Alucarda. This is such a great movie. This is, like, exactly the type of shit I want to see. Just, like, weird, kinda surreal, extremely gay, violent as all hell, extremely critical of the church. Just a really good movie. Just a really solid movie. I loved Alucarda. This is probably my biggest recommendation of the video so far. I did really love Alice, too. Alice was really good. That one was also really, like, a kind of a dream logic film. Probably even more so than Alucarda, but those so far, I think, would be my recommendations. My highest recommendations, at least. There's plenty on here I liked. Alucarda, man, like, I don't even know how much I can say about it. I know it's based on the book Camilla, which is, like, the first lesbian vampire book. A lot of movies took inspiration from it, including Alucarda. Yeah, this is a really good movie. This is a really, like, deep, entertaining, wild, off the chain, just fun movie. It's everything I want in a movie. You know, Alucarda really hit the nail on the head. This is the type of movie I personally really want to see. So Alucarda, my highest recommendations.
A little stopped up, a little hoarse right now, but that's fine. I'm here to talk to you about number 11, a Thai horror film. For this, I watched Cannibal Mercenary, and it's from Thailand, not Hong Kong, but this still really feels like a Godfrey Ho joint. Like, I swear this is a Godfrey Ho film. It reeks of his style. You know, just the absolute thinnest plot to get you from one fight scene to the next. You know, just like super generic army movie. This would fit in perfectly with like his America Force movies. Big Godfrey Ho vibes from this one. The titular cannibals, like, they're barely in the movie. They do not show up till, like, the end of the movie. So it feels like kind of false advertising on that front. And I mean, I have nothing to say about this, because, I mean, it's the thinnest plot. It's like they come to this dude and they're like, hey, we'll pay you to go, like, deep into the jungle and like fight these people, and he takes a little convincing, but he agrees to do it, and then it's just him and these other people out there shooting around, shooting these people. It does have the return of that same voice actor who dubbed The Dragon Lives Again. The Dragon Lives Again. I talked about him dubbing Kung Fu Zombie as well. He's in this one, although in this one he graciously only voices one character, unlike Dragon Lives Again where he voices like half the cast. Other than him, this is like a completely unnoteworthy film. Like, don't even bother. I'm gonna forget I've even seen this movie. It'll be like 2-3 years down the road, and someone will mention Cannibal Mercenary. That's the title. I'm already forgetting the title. Someone will be like, "Yeah, Cannibal Mercenary," and I'll be like, "Ah, fuck, have I seen that one? Yeah, I've seen that one. Oh, what happens in that? Nothing happens in that."
Number 30, a movie listed in the Shock Marathon books. This is another bit of nepotism on Mr. Decloux's part, as those books were written by frequent Golden Ninja Video collaborator Matt Farley. But I checked the list on Letterboxd and found Fade to Black, a movie I've had a copy of for a while, been meaning to watch, so hey, perfect opportunity to do it. And hey, what an enjoyable film. Like, going in, I felt like I kind of knew where the film was going to go, but it ended up being a lot more unpredictable than I thought it would be, so that was real nice. And, it's a lot of fun on top of that. It's, like this cinephile who goes crazy and starts impersonating the movies. I don't think it's anything exceptional. I'm sure a lot of people will watch it and just be like, okay, but I really enjoyed it. I think there's a lot in there for me personally, and for people like me. Both the references to old movies, and just as someone who enjoys a good horror film, as someone who enjoys a good killing. Honestly, this feels like the type of film I would try to write, just because it's so about movies. It is a little odd because it seems to be selling itself on like, oh, this guy is imitating like horror movies, but it honestly feels more like he's imitating gangster movies. There's only about 2 scenes in there that feel horror at all. He does like a vampire, he does a Dracula, and then he does a mummy later. But otherwise, it's mostly gangster films in this movie. So there's that, and like old school gangster films, like James Cagney era gangster films. I almost would have preferred if they had leaned into that a little harder, just done it like all the way gangster, or done it all the way horror. Horror is kind of the obvious way to go, but if they had gone all the way gangster with it, I think that would have been like even greater a subversion than what we actually got. But I don't know, for what it is, it's enjoyable. Honestly, I was expecting a lot more modern horror. When I say modern, I mean like 70s, 80s, but no, it's like all like classic Universal monster stuff. Understandable, I guess. That does seem to be like something filmmakers love to do, is especially around this period. It was a lot of references to like the 30s and 40s, because that's the movies these filmmakers grew up with. But I think it would have been more obvious, perhaps, but maybe a little more interesting if it were more like 70s, 80s horror they were doing, or just like 70s, 80s movies, since they clearly didn't limit themselves to horror. I don't know, would make a nice pairing with popcorn, which I talked about earlier. The movie. Probably also make a good pairing with a bowl of popcorn, but that's not what I meant. Fade to Black, solid movie.
Number 13, a horror film that takes place at a fair or carnival. I picked the original fair or circus horror movie, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. I was already planning on showing this to my friends for our Halloween movie night, so I recorded their reaction to it.
So what'd you guys think of Cabinet of Dr. Caligari?
I liked it and will probably never watch it again.
I could watch it again under circumstances. Like, I don't think it's one that I'm gonna directly choose to put on anytime soon. But like, hell, even if Chris just wanted to watch it because Chris missed this one, I'd be down to like show it to her because it's like,
That's why I said probably.
yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting piece of history. So like, even if I don't watch the movie in its entirety again, I'm definitely going to be seeing clips of this again. There's like a great chance that this could come up in like a video essay or something. You know, it's just such a. In fact, I think I did use it in a video before that didn't get released. I was talking about during the movie. I remember some of these shots. Like, I swear I like used it as a source in a video. Like, someone, I was like maybe using an interview clip and someone mentioned it and I played a clip, or one of like I recorded something with you and you brought it up. But I think it's but my best guess is it's my Edgar Wright video that never came out that I still will release eventually, but it's going to be kind of a almost a joke release at this point. Uh, but yeah, I think that I'm kind of going off on a tangent here in terms of what I thought of the movie. It's really cool for the time. I mean, aesthetically, it's a blast to watch. The entire thing looks like really good. Like it like its technology is kind of what benefits the movie too. Because if you film this on modern cameras, like it just I don't think. I mean, it could work still, but you would have to set up the shots differently. You know, I think this movie knew exactly what it was. It worked within its limitations perfectly. Before the time, it probably wasn't even really seen as like limitations. It was probably seen as groundbreaking what they were doing. You know, um, and yeah, I think visually the movie's great. In terms of the story, it's interesting. It's definitely one I did not feel bad about talking over as we watched it because one, it's silent and the text shows up on stays on the screen really fucking long, which I appreciate, so I can actually read it. But also, it's just for a lot of these older movies, the story is like finding ways to tell stories through cinema was definitely something we were working on during the 20s.
Now, this is a movie that, like, I frequently forget plot points from, but, like, the visuals are always so clear in my mind.
Yeah. And despite being a really old movie, it does do like I mean, it does stuff that modern films love to do. Like it ends on a plot twist. Um, so like it is like for the time, I bet this blew people's minds, and even to this day, I think it holds up for what it is. Like yeah, like seriously, the people who made this, I'm sure all of them are dead now, but they made something that I think holds up if you're a film buff or you're a film fan. If you're like just a casual moviegoer, you're gonna be like, oh, this is old. Why would I watch this? But if you actually, even if you're not a film buff, if you just appreciate film, I think you'll like. It's kind of. I mentioned that I kind of made a joke about not having colors when we watched it, but like, yeah, they do tint the shots. So even though it is black, it's not really black and white. It's like orange, it's tan, it's blue, it's green.
It's something I wish more films from the time had done.
Yeah, because it's really smart.
I love the makeup. I love the makeup in this movie. It like I wish I could see in color what they did. Because I recently saw like a thing about like makeup in old movies and how sometimes it like looked completely different than how it would like translate on the screen. Like a lot of it would be like blue or green or something like that. And it wouldn't be like the traditional makeup that one would just wear out and about. It would be what would show up well on the reel on the screen. And I'm like, I want to see what their makeup looked like outside of the screen. I want to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you almost wish that they had like a better camera to capture the behind the scenes back then, but nope, that's you have the advanced camera right there. It's possible someone could like recreate. Honest to God, I wonder if anyone has done that, like recreated what a lot of these like just generally shots in older movies would have looked like with like today's technology. But yeah, no, I mean the entire movie's lit perfectly. The entire movie's shot perfectly. The sets are good. There's a couple of shots where the set looks like a stage play. I mean, you could argue the entire thing looks like that, but I mean, there's shots where it looks like the background is painted onto the stage, and that's what you're looking at, which is fine for the. fine for the time, and to be fair, the background paintings looked nice. But then there were other shots where shit, it just blended in really well. There's a shot near the end where the guy's like running over a hill. And it looks like really abstract, really uncanny, but like great at the same time. And it doesn't look like, oh, they just filmed this on the stage. You know, it looked like this is a genuine set. It's like kind of this abstract world that they're in. So you can kind of ignore the fact that it's a movie set.
Yeah, no, it does look like sort of a play set, but it's like a huge play set, right? Yeah. Like it's a stage play that you move around in a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just the buildings are also really weird. Like the shapes are very weird. Like if you see like a door in this movie, it's not just going to be a regular door. It's going to be like a slanted door. Like it's like kind of a weird. It almost looks like a kid drew it.
You could definitely see Tim Burton getting inspiration from this movie.
Absolutely. Yeah, visuals are like the number one thing I can mention. Like you'll have rooms in this house where like the ceiling is just like all over the place. You know, like it's not just a flat ceiling. It's like there's different shapes and curves, and the background is just always really busy. But not I don't mean that in a bad way. There's just so much detail to it, but it all blends in really well. Yeah, it was just a fascinating look back at film history, honestly.
So I had Mitzi down for my birthday, and I decided to just spend most of my birthday doing a horror movie marathon, showing Mitzi some movies I had wanted to show them for a while, and I managed to squeeze two in there that fit in for the challenge. One is number 15, a movie written by Nigel Neal. For this, I showed Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, baby. Halloween classic. You gotta understand, like, John Carpenter's Halloween, S tier. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, A tier. Every other Halloween movie is D tier at the highest. Some of them are F tier. There are some F tier fucking Halloween movies. This is the only other Halloween movie worth watching, okay? All the other Halloween movies are trash, except Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, which is a great movie. I'm so happy this film has gotten its critical reevaluation. I'm so glad we all agree Halloween 3 was good, actually. We were mad in the 80s because it didn't have Michael Myers in it, but it turns out Michael Myers movies are historically not good. Like overwhelmingly not good. There has been one good movie about Michael Myers. So yeah, I love this movie. I love like how Halloweeny it is. Like the villain is like a Halloween mask manufacturer, and so it's like pumpkin and witch masks and skeleton masks all throughout the movie, and that's the threat. It's just like these spooky Halloween masks. It's really good. It's a really fun, enjoyable time. I saw someone online compare it to like a Halloween themed Twilight Zone episode, and yeah, I could kind of see that, especially with like the ending. That it kind of leaves it ambiguous. Ooh, spoilers? Who cares? So, but I love just how it's a more Halloween-y film than Halloween even. Like Halloween takes place on Halloween. This movie is like Halloween is endemic to the plot of this movie. I think this is like the perfect Halloween-y movie. The other one I showed for number 5, a film directed by a fine artist. I had to ask for clarification on this one. Apparently he just meant any artist who's had, or any director who's had like art featured in a museum. And I looked into it, and that seems to fit the description of one Miss Catherine Bigelow, the director of Near Dark. This is a movie I wanted to show to Mitzi for a while because Mitzi really likes vampire movies, and this is like one of my favorite vampire movies, honestly. Definitely, like,
maybe my favorite vampire movie that's not about Dracula. I would have to think about that, but I think any other vampire movie I like more than this is about specifically Dracula, so this is my favorite non-Dracula vampire movie that I can think of. Just off the top of my head, this is my favorite. I might contradict myself on that later. Man, I forgot how much of a bastard like every character in this movie is. Like it's actually about like because I remember it being like kind of heartfelt, like the main character gets along with this like band of vampires, and I mean he does, but they're also all like these are vampires that will actually just go out and kill people. These are not your fucking Twilight vampires that are like tiptoeing around the fact that they have to kill people. It's like, no, we're just gonna go fucking eat people. Fuck you. But that's fun. Like, it's fun to have them as like the main characters. You know, they're not like some threat. We're not following someone who's hunting the vampires. We're not trying to defeat the vampires. The vampires are the main characters, and they're going out and they're fucking shit up, and that's so glorious to see. But at the same time, like all the performances in this movie are fucking great. It's, you know, Bill Paxton, Lance Henriksen, even like the kid in this movie. I feel like I've seen him in other stuff, but like he's really good in this movie, playing like someone who was turned as a child, but that was like decades ago, so who knows how old they are now. I'm watching the Amazon guy deliver my package right now. I see him go to my apartment. I'm sorry to have him out in the rain, but I didn't know it was going to be raining when I ordered that package. Yeah, Near Dark. Just a really fun movie. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. Easily Catherine Bigelow's best film. Even though she's won Oscars, this is definitely her best film. At least my favorite of her films. Let's be a little subjective here. It's my favorite Catherine Bigelow film. Yeah, watch Near Dark.
It's raining outside. I haven't showered yet. Number 15, a film with effects by Olaf Ittenbach. I watched his film Primutus, The Fallen Angel. So this is probably the goriest movie I've ever seen, which is quite an accomplishment if you know me. I watch some real gory stuff. It's like up between like this and Dead Alive, or Brain Dead. That's Brain Dead? That's the original title, the Australian title. If you're not from the States, that's the title. You know, the Peter Jackson movie. It would be down between this and that. Now, Dead Alive is certainly more visceral with its gore, but I would honestly say that's almost down to, like, the quantity in this movie. Like, there's so much gore, so much blood that it starts to, like, stop meaning anything. It's also down to them having, like, a way lower budget than Peter Jackson had. This is like some real amateur filmmaking. Granted, prior to this, he made a shot-on-video horror film called The Burning Moon, which is the best shot-on-video horror film. No cap. Best horror, best SOV horror, best shot-on-video horror film, The Burning Moon. And this clearly has a higher budget than that. This is, he got a little money. He's not filming with a video camera anymore. This was like shot on film. The effects are a little better. That's almost to its detriment though, because like, I like The Burning Moon better. I'll just say that much. I like The Burning Moon better because it's like, there's no money, right? There is absolutely no money in that movie, and they're still like, yeah, we don't have any money, but we're still gonna show you a man getting ripped in half. Like, it just like the lower quality, the lower production value really lets me accept the just endless gore gags. This movie, like, on the one hand,
it's absolutely an excuse to get from one bloody kill to the next. Make no mistakes. This is we're just trying to kill as many people as we fucking can. We're trying to have as much blood and guts as we can get away with in this movie. But they did at least kind of have some originality with the connective tissue there, right? It's about like, oh, there's this demon Primutus, and every time he shows up, horrible acts of violence occur. So then you know, you get all the flashbacks to like all of the previous horribly violent incidents. So yeah, I didn't love it, but it was pretty enjoyable. I think if you've got friends who are like really into like violent, gory movies, this is like a fun thing to put on with some friends and be like, oh, look how wacky and wild it is. Look how over the top and gory it is. They even abruptly cut to the crucifixion in this movie, which puts it in a category with films like Multiple Maniacs and Scorpio Rising, of just like absolutely batshit movies that randomly have the crucifixion of Jesus in them. I think it had artistic purpose in Scorpio Rising. In Multiple Maniacs, it just showed up because that movie's fucking insane. And this movie's fucking insane. So, you know, good company. This, Multiple Maniacs. That's a double feature right there. Primutus the Fallen Angel. It's enjoyable. Excessively violent, but pretty enjoyable.
Number 22, a film starring Michel Sauvé. I hope I'm saying that even close to right. I watched The Church, which was written to be a sequel to Lamberto Bava's Demons, but then at the last second they made it not that. Probably because this movie doesn't really have a whole lot to do with demons. I mean, a little bit. Like, it would work as a Demons sequel. It just also works as a standalone film. So this movie tries to have a plot for the first like 20-30 minutes, and it's really boring and honestly kind of hard to follow. I wasn't super sure what was going on, but then at some point it slowly becomes just like trippy nonsense, which Italian horror is ought to do. I just think like it takes just a little too long to really get into the trippy stuff. Once it's in the trippy stuff, it's really good. It's a really interesting, like, trippy visual experience there near the end, but, like, man, they take forever to get into it. It's one of those films that just feels like it really has to justify the trippy stuff, and ultimately it would kind of be better if they just leaned into the weirdness of it. They didn't explain it. They didn't give us any sort of setup. It was just boom, we're on to the trippy shit, you know. But you know, it is still like a good watch. It's a fun watch. Not as good as Demons. I would rather watch Demons, but you know, it's a fun little movie. It's you gotta give it time. You gotta be a little patient with it. But once it really gets going, because there's like a guy is looking for some like mysterious demonic thing, and then he just gets possessed by a demon. And after he's possessed by a demon, things really go off there. Although for a while there, they're kind of bouncing back and forth between like the demon stuff and the real plot. But by the end of the movie, it's like all trippy stuff. It's like the entire climax is just like weird things happening. You know, they don't even bother resolving the plot they set up at the beginning, because it's like, nah, we're past that. We're way past that now, and now we're just doing weird shit. So yeah, worth it for the strange ending, but it is a bit of a hike to get there. Number 27, a movie from a director who's made at least 3 movies, but only one horror movie.
I watched the French film Devil Story, and my fucking god, man. This film plays like you asked a drunk guy to just come up with a horror movie, like, on the fly. You know, it's just like, oh, there's this Nazi zombie, and he stabs a guy, and then he, like, slashes a girl's face, and he kills this other dude, and then he shoots this woman, and then a couple shows up, and they're like, oh, we gotta get away, and they find this, like, creepy castle to stay in, and it plays that fucking Bach song. I don't remember what it's called, but it's, you know, the like the most cliche horror music you've ever heard. You know, like a song that has just become associated with, like, ooh, creepy castle, gotta play the and then, like a mummy shows up, like, 20 minutes into the out of nowhere. Like, they explain why the mummy's there, at least, but it's just like all of a sudden there's a mummy in the movie. It's just random horror tropes. Not even horror tropes, just horror elements shoved together with no sense of pacing or structure. It's just, you know, whatever we thought of, it's going up on screen. Like the big Nazi zombie who's supposed to be like the main villain gets killed like 30 minutes from the end, and then he's just gone from the movie. What were you going for with this? It's entertaining, don't get me wrong, it's entertaining as all hell. I definitely enjoyed it. But it's so, I hate to even say unfocused, because it's like there's nothing to focus on really with this film. It's like a stream of consciousness movie almost. I mean, like I said, it's like you just asked a drunk guy to come up with a horror movie off the top of his head, and it's like, yeah, there's a mummy, and the guy shoots at a horse. He shoots at that horse for so long, and there are no muzzle flashes. He's just like, bang, bang, bang. Yeah, I mean, that should give you an idea of what this movie's all about. Just random horror elements showing up with no rhyme or reason. But it is pretty fun. It's pretty fun. I enjoyed it. Support your local library. Except it's Sunday. The library's closed. I'm here doing recycling. Number 11, a horror film with Caroline Munro. I chose The Last Horror Film, which is weirdly close to the end of the list. Maybe I should have just made this the last film on the list, because it is the last horror film. Stars Joe Spinell of Maniac fame. Actually, Caroline Munro's in that too, and I like Maniac. This movie kind of gave me a deeper appreciation for Maniac, because if there's one thing I wanted more of in this movie, it's Joe Spinell just going crazy, just absolutely losing his mind. Like Maniac has that, like, descent into madness, and this film tries that descent into madness, and like, anytime it's trying, it's actually really good. I appreciate the attempt. I wish they'd just gone harder with it. Like, the slasher elements of the film are like all really generic. I was not into them at all. Also, they red herring way too hard with this movie. Like, basically just straight up say, oh yeah, Joe Spinell's the killer, except you never see him kill anyone. So it's like, okay, obviously it's not Joe Spinell. Obviously Joe Spinell, like it would have been a twist if he actually was the killer. Like, they implicate him too much, you know, and then they never show him kill anyone. Like, if they showed his face during the killings, it'd be like, okay, we've established from the beginning, blah, 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 blah. We've established from the beginning that this guy is the killer, right? But since it's not established, since we're keeping it a secret, it's like, yeah, obviously it's not Joe, and Joe Spinell is the only person they ever
even try to convince you is the killer. So like a murder mystery works when you've got like a bunch of people with a bunch of different motives. This one, no, the mystery does not work at all, because like the only person they implicate is Joe Spinell, and it's clearly not him. So this would sort of fall in that category with Fade to Black and Popcorn. Honestly, it did remind me of Fade to Black a lot, though I liked Fade to Black a lot more. This is kind of the film I was worried Fade to Black was gonna be. I mean, last horror film, it's fine. There's stuff I like about it. Like, the stuff it does well, it does really well. I love the performances in this movie. Like, Joe Spinell and Carolyn Monroe both give really good performances in this movie. But also, the lady playing Joe Spinell's mother, I think, is a lot of fun. And the ending's hilarious. I love the ending. But, I don't know, it's a weaker slasher, in my opinion. Not like a bad slasher, but it's like a weaker one, in my opinion.
I haven't done one in here yet. Number 4, a movie from SRS Cinema. I watched Bad CGI Sharks. Yet another... oh my god, I just realized why I haven't done one in here. Holy fuck, there's an echo. Bad CGI Sharks is another one that was recommended to me by one of my patrons. Probably John Cleveland. John Cleveland recommends everything to me. I was expecting this film to be unbearably meta, and it certainly has its moments, but it is not as bad as I was expecting it to be. It's a lot more charming than I thought it was gonna be. It's honestly, the thing it reminds me of most is Rubber. Now, it's nowhere near as good as Rubber. It's nowhere near as clever as Rubber. But it has more in common with Rubber than, say, Sharknado. Sharknado is a little too on the nose for me. Bad CGI Sharks lands somewhere in the middle. It's not clever. It's not as clever as Rubber, but it's also not as, like, we just shit something out because we know people like goofy, silly movies like this. Like, they put effort in. There's good humor in this. Like, I got some laughs out of this. It's not a bad movie. Is it incredibly predictable? Yes. Is some of the cinematography obnoxious? Yes. Are there jokes that don't land? Yes. But there are also plenty of jokes that do land. I really like Bernardo as a character, even though he is probably the character that makes the film as unbearably meta as it is. Like, the worst moments of meta humor come from him. But he's also the one that adds, like, a layer of charm to it, a layer of, like, this is not just, ha-ha, we're making a bad shark movie. Don't you guys love bad shark movies? I don't think the bad CGI shark was all that bad, honestly. It was a pretty mediocre CGI shark. Kind of looked like something out of like an Animal Planet documentary. I think it's funny that it just, like, floats around. I like the Halloween parody they do with it. There's some fun moments in this movie. It's not brilliant. This is not a like, oh, you gotta see this movie. It might be fun to put on with, like, some friends or something. It's nothing exceptional, though. I don't know, it's a movie called Bad CGI Sharks, so you more or less know what you're getting into. Yeah, Bad CGI Sharks. There it is.
It is Halloween. You can tell because I've got the color balance pulled all the way down and it is still super orange in here. It is actually it's November 1st. I watched number 3, an Egyptian horror film. I got to this one last because it actually took me a little while to find an Egyptian horror film. I initially wanted to do a film called Ambassador of Hell, but I couldn't find, like, an English version of it anywhere. So instead I watched a movie called Fangs, which was pitched to me as Egyptian Rocky Horror Picture Show. And at first I was like, okay, yeah, that's accurate. But it's actually more like Egyptian the first 20 minutes of Rocky Horror Picture Show, and then it diverts into a completely batshit insane Dracula movie.
pun intended. It's almost like a subversion, right? Like the point where you're expecting Dr. Frankenfurter to show up, the moment you're expecting the Tim Curry of this movie to show up and do his number. Instead, it's Dracula. And the movie never really goes back to being Rocky Horror after that. It does have some musical numbers after that, but it's not really like Rocky Horror much at all. But the beginning of the movie, the first 20 minutes of the movie are beat for beat Rocky Horror. It's the same songs, the same scenes, the same things happening. There's even a very funny part in the opening credits where they have, instead of having like the big lips floating in the black void, they have painted someone's face black with bright red lipstick. It's not blackface. It's all the way black. It's not like trying to look like the race. It's trying to look like a dark void. It's void face. I mean, the music in this movie is good. I enjoy the music in this movie a lot because I mean, like I said, they do musical numbers after the first three numbers, and the opening number is very different from science fiction double feature. It's catchy. I think the Brad and Janet song in this is better than Brad and Janet's actual song. Granted, I think Brad and Janet's actual song is not very good because it's sort of showing that these two are really lame people. And, like, because all the other music in that movie goes so hard, it's like, yeah, no, they know how to write a good song. This one's, like, lame on purpose. Fangs does not share that. Fangs is like, no, let's write a good song for Brad and Janet. Although they also kind of have, like, a happy ending for Brad and Janet. This movie does not go gay at all. There is no homosexuality in this film. There are scenes in this film that, like, look like they were inspired by stuff in Rocky Horror, but then where the scene in Rocky Horror would be, oh, now we're having gay sex, in this movie, it's an actual Dracula scene, which is almost like them coming full circle. Like Rocky Horror was a parody of, like, old horror movies, and now they're just unironically doing old horror movies in their Rocky Horror ripoff. I could see people trying to lump this in with, like funny bad movies. Like, I could see people calling this so bad it's good. I disagree. I genuinely enjoyed this film. It's a fun, weird Dracula movie from Egypt that steals the first 20 minutes of Rocky Horror. To great comedic effect, I think. It's a funny movie. There's a vampire Old Spice guy with David Bowie makeup, and he just puts on a Rocky Horror t-shirt. I don't know, this is a fun movie. This is a good movie. I enjoyed this movie. That should be everything, right? Oh, wait, fuck. Number 31, a horror movie you love that you wish more people would see. I'm cheating, but I'm cheating in both directions. It is currently November 1st. This is Grave Robbers, a film I watched the day before this super scary movie challenge was posted. Grave Robbers is a lot of fun. This is a Spanish horror film about these kids who go into, like, this old tomb, and they find a bunch of stuff, and they accidentally reawaken this, like, ancient, like satanic cult that used to practice the witchcraft, sorcery in this in this tomb, basically around this tomb, in this area. They reawaken these Satanists, and so you got a lot of, like, undead satanic antics. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of really fun kills in this one. And some like genuinely cool effects in there. It's a really enjoyable movie. I watched this before the challenge started. This is Psychomania. I watched this one today. This is a horror film I also love that I wish more people would see. And in my slight defense, there are definitely some movies I watched during these 2 months that could probably qualify for this. I just didn't do it with the intent of of doing it for this. Psychomania is a fun movie. It's this kid's mother is a witch who gives him like the secret to coming back from the dead, and he teaches it to his whole biker gang. And so there's like this really fun sequence of all of them killing themselves so they can come back immortal. And then, you know, once they're back as immortals, they start fucking shit up. They start just causing terror everywhere they go, and no one can stop them because they're immortal, you know? It's a lot of fun. It's it's got a guy driving a motorcycle out of his grave, which it's ridiculous that they buried him sitting upwards on his motorcycle, and it is entirely for the shot where he drives a motorcycle out of his grave. But you know what? It's such a cool shot, I'm willing to let them have that one. There it is. That is all 31 challenges in the Super Scary Movie Challenge for 2022. Some good movies in there. Obviously, there are a few I saw before: Caligari, Near Dark, Halloween 3 that I would recommend. Alucarda and Alice are probably my two strongest recommendations, even the ones I have seen. What else? Popcorn, Fade to Black were both pretty good. Fangs was a lot of fun. I'm glad I watched that one. I'm probably forgetting one or two in there that I really enjoyed. It was fun. This was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you next time. Happy Halloween.